I used to think getting fired from my media company was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Until I discovered the man who signed my termination papers was obsessed with the Italian restaurant I secretly owned. Yeah, he was a pasta lover. And I had a taste for revenge. Every Wednesday night, he'd waltz into Via Emilia, order the house ravioli, and leave generous tips, completely unaware he was funding the very woman he'd just kicked to the curb. The irony was delicious, but not nearly as satisfying as what I had planned for him. My name is Jessica Morgan, and at 34, I'd built two completely different lives in Portland, Oregon. By day, I was a project manager at Hollow Signal Media, navigating the treacherous waters of digital content strategies and client expectations. By night, I was the silent force behind Via Emilia, a cozy Italian restaurant tucked away in the Pearl District that had somehow become the city's worst-kept secret among food enthusiasts. The duality wasn't born from deception. It was pure survival instinct. I'd learned early in my career that being a woman in tech meant constantly proving you belonged there. Adding restaurant owner to my LinkedIn would have been like painting a target on my back, screaming that I wasn't fully committed to the corporate grind. So Via Emilia existed under my sister Rachel's name, though she lived in Denver and couldn't tell gnocchi from ravioli if her life depended on it. Hollow Signal Media occupied 3 floors of a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs. Portland's aesthetic in a nutshell. I'd been there for 6 years, slowly climbing from coordinator to manager, learning to speak fluent corporate, synergy, bandwidth, circle back. The politics were subtle but constant, like background radiation. Who got the corner conference room? Whose ideas made it to the C-suite? Which team got the premium clients? Every decision carried weight beyond its surface. My team handled digital campaigns for sustainable brands, which in Portland meant half our clients made artisanal something. I was good at my job, maybe too good. I'd increased our department's revenue by 40% over 2 years, streamlined our workflow, and somehow managed to keep my team of creatives happy despite the constant pressure from above. But being good at your job and being recognized for it were 2 different games entirely. Via Emilia, on the other hand, was my real baby. I'd opened it 3 years ago using an inheritance from my grandmother, a woman who taught me that good food could solve most problems and great food could make you forget you had any. The restaurant was small, just 24 seats, with checkered tablecloths and wine bottles turned candle holders. Nothing fancy, but everything made from scratch. My head chef, Marcus, was a genius who'd trained in Bologna and understood that simplicity required perfection. I'd hired my team carefully, servers who genuinely loved food, a sommelier who could make wine accessible without condescension, and a manager who kept everything running while I played corporate warrior across town. The books were healthy, reviews were stellar, and we had regulars who'd throw fits if we changed even a single ingredient in their favorite dishes. The beauty of the arrangement was its invisibility. The LLC was registered under R. Morgan Enterprises. All the permits in Rachel's name. I handled the finances through a separate business account, met with suppliers early mornings or late evenings, and reviewed menus on my lunch breaks. My Hollow Signal colleagues had no idea their efficiency-obsessed project manager spent her weekends obsessing over pasta dough consistency and profit margins of a different kind. Portland's food scene was intimate enough that restaurant owners usually knew each other, but I'd deliberately kept a low profile. I was the mysterious owner who communicated through her manager, showed up occasionally in the kitchen, but never worked the front of house. Some of my own colleagues had eaten at Via Emilia, raving about it the next day while I nodded along, playing the interested foodie. This double life had its challenges. The exhaustion of switching between spreadsheets and sauces, the constant vigilance about keeping my worlds separate, the loneliness of not being able to celebrate Via Emilia's successes with my work friends or vent about Hollow Signal's frustrations to my restaurant staff. But it was mine, this carefully orchestrated balance, and I'd gotten comfortable juggling both identities. I should have known it couldn't last. In my experience, the universe doesn't let you get too comfortable before it decides to shake things up. I just didn't expect the shakeup to come in the form of a new boss who would unknowingly become my best customer and eventually my most satisfying served dish of cold revenge. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, let me tell you about the day Lucas Harwood walked into Hollow Signal Media and changed everything. Lucas Harwood arrived on a Monday morning in late September, when Portland's rain had just started its 8-month residency. He swept into our office wearing a Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than most of our monthly salaries. His silver fox hair perfectly styled despite the drizzle outside. At 41, he had that particular brand of confidence that came from never having to prove himself to anyone. The kind of man who'd been told yes so often, he'd forgotten no was an option. The all-hands meeting to introduce our new executive director of regional operations was scheduled for 9 a.m. I watched from my usual spot in the middle rows as our CEO, Martin, gushed about Lucas's transformative leadership at his previous companies. Lucas stood there, scanning the room like a predator identifying the weak in the herd, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. "Change is coming to Hollow Signal," he announced, his voice carrying that practiced authority of someone who'd given too many TED Talks. "We're going to revolutionize how we approach digital media in the Pacific Northwest. Some of you will rise to the challenge. Others—" He paused, letting the threat hang in the air like smoke. "Well, let's just focus on rising, shall we?" My stomach twisted. I'd survived 3 restructures at Hollow Signal, but something about Lucas felt different. Dangerous. Within his first week, Lucas began what he called optimization meetings, one-on-ones with every team lead. Mine was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. I prepared like I was defending a dissertation, armed with metrics, projections, and a highlights reel of our biggest wins. None of it mattered. "Jessica," he said, not looking up from his phone as I entered his office, formerly our beloved VP Janet's space, now stripped of any personality and replaced with abstract art and a putting green. "Sit. Not please sit or thanks for coming. Just sit." Like I was a dog. The meeting was a masterclass in subtle undermining. Every achievement I mentioned, he countered with how it could have been better. Every successful campaign was met with interesting approach, in a tone that suggested it was anything but. When I mentioned our 40% revenue increase, he actually laughed. 40% of what, exactly? It's easy to improve on mediocrity. I kept my expression neutral, a skill honed by years of client presentations and team conflicts. But inside, I was seething. This man had been here less than a week and was already dismissing 2 years of blood, sweat, and sacrificed weekends. The real pattern emerged over the following weeks. Lucas had a very specific vision for Hollow Signal's future, and it didn't include strong female voices in leadership. Oh, he was too smart to say it outright. This wasn't the 1960s. Instead, he deployed 1,000 tiny cuts, talking over me in meetings, crediting my ideas to male colleagues who'd happened to nod along, scheduling urgent meetings during my presentations, forcing me to reschedule, asking my male report. Tyler, sweet, incompetent Tyler who couldn't strategize his way out of a paper bag, for his thoughts on Jessica's approach. The other women in leadership noticed it too. Sarah from Creative started keeping a notebook of every instance. Monica from Sales developed stress hives. We'd grab drinks after work, comparing notes, realizing we were all experiencing the same treatment. But what could we do? Lucas was careful, surgical. Nothing actionable, nothing HR could grab onto. Just a slow, steady erosion of our authority and credibility. Then came the Friday that changed everything. I was reviewing contracts when Diane from Accounts Payable stopped by my desk, eyes bright with gossip. "You'll never guess who I saw at Via Emilia last night," she whispered, glancing around to make sure Lucas wasn't nearby. "Our new Lord and Master himself. And oh my God, Jessica, you should have seen him. He was practically in tears over their ravioli. Said it was the best Italian food he'd had outside of Italy. He was there for 3 hours. My blood ran cold, then hot, then cold again. Lucas Harwood at my restaurant. The cosmic joke was too perfect. Really? I managed, keeping my voice steady. I've heard it's good. Good? He told the waiter he'd be back every week. Said their cocktails were transcendent. Who even uses that word about drinks? That weekend, I called an emergency meeting with my restaurant manager, Amy. We went through the reservation books, credit card receipts, everything. There it was. Lucas Harwood, party of 2, Wednesday night, paid with his Amex Black, left a 30% tip, a note from his server. Craig, super enthusiastic about everything, wants to meet the chef, asked about the owner, loves the Dolce Veleno cocktail. The Dolce Veleno, sweet poison, I'd named it myself. A blend of bourbon, Aperol, and blood orange that went down smooth but packed a punch. How perfectly appropriate, standing in my restaurant's kitchen, surrounded by the life I'd built outside of Lucas's reach. I made a decision. He could take my job, undermine my authority, dismiss my work. But Via Emilia? That was mine. And if he was going to become a regular at my establishment while simultaneously trying to destroy my career, well, let's just say the customer isn't always right. The axe fell on a Tuesday morning in November, exactly 6 weeks after Lucas had arrived. I should have seen it coming, the suddenly canceled one-on-ones, my exclusion from strategic planning sessions, the way Lucas's assistant, Brittany, had started avoiding eye contact. But denial is a powerful drug, and I'd been mainlining it for days. Jessica, could you join me in conference room C? Lucas's voice crackled through the desk phone. No context, no warning, just that flat, corporate tone that meant nothing good. Conference room C was our smallest meeting space, tucked in a corner with no windows, the place where uncomfortable conversations went to die. Lucas sat at the far end of the table, flanked by Meredith from HR. She gave me a sympathetic grimace that confirmed my worst suspicions. Please, sit, Lucas said, gesturing to the chair across from them. A manila folder lay closed on the table between us. Might as well have been a loaded gun. Jessica, I'll cut to the chase, he began, not quite meeting my eyes. As you know, Hollow Signal is moving in a new direction. We need leaders who are fully aligned with our vision for the future. I sat perfectly still, my hands folded in my lap. Inside, my heart was hammering so hard I was sure they could hear it. Your work here has been adequate, he continued. The pause before adequate hanging in the air like a slap. But adequate isn't what we need right now. We need exceptional. We need leaders who demonstrate unwavering commitment to the company's growth. My team's numbers, I started, but he held up a hand, are not the issue. It's about cultural fit. Jessica, leadership presence, the ability to inspire transformational change. Each buzzword felt like another nail in my professional coffin. I've observed your management style over these past weeks, and I'm afraid it's not aligned with where we're headed. Meredith slid the folder across the table. This is your separation agreement. We're offering 2 weeks severance, continuation of health benefits through the end of the month, and a neutral reference. 2 weeks, 6 years of my life, and they were offering 2 weeks. The decision is effective immediately, Lucas added, finally making eye contact. There was something almost gleeful in his expression, quickly masked by professional concern. Brittany has boxes at your desk. We'll need your badge and company laptop before you leave. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to tell him exactly what his transformational leadership looked like from where I was sitting. Instead, I channeled every ounce of my grandmother's Midwestern steel. I see, I said, my voice steady as granite. And my team. Tyler will be taking over as interim lead while we search for a replacement. Tyler, who once tried to schedule a campaign launch on Christmas Day because he forgot to check the calendar. Tyler, who thought Instagram and Twitter were basically the same thing. Tyler, who had a Y chromosome and a golf handicap Lucas admired. I signed where Meredith indicated, declined their offer to have security escort me out. That won't be necessary. Will it? Jessica, Lucas had said with faux concern, and walked back to my desk with my head high. My team was conspicuously absent, probably herded into a meeting somewhere to keep them from witnessing my walk of shame. Only Sarah from Creative was at her desk, tears streaming down her face as she watched me pack 6 years into cardboard boxes. "This is bullshit," she whispered fiercely. "Yes." I agreed, carefully wrapping the small succulent my team had given me for my birthday. "It is." The elevator ride down felt endless. The security guard at the front desk, Jerome, who I'd chatted with every morning for years, couldn't meet my eyes as he took my badge. The rain outside had turned into a proper Portland downpour, and I stood under the building's awning, boxes getting damp, trying to process what had just happened. Fired, let go, separated, downsized. All the euphemisms we use to soften the blow of being deemed expendable. My phone was already buzzing with texts from colleagues who'd heard the news. I ignored them all. Instead, I drove straight to Via Emilia. It was barely 11 a.m., too early for lunch service. Marcus was in the kitchen, prepping for the day, and looked up in surprise when I walked in. "Boss, what are you doing here?" I set my sad cardboard boxes on the counter and laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that made him step back. "I just got fired," I said, the words feeling surreal. "Lucas fucking Harwood just ended my corporate career because I don't have the right leadership presence." Marcus's face darkened. He knew the name. Amy had mentioned our new VIP customer who came in every Wednesday like clockwork, raving about our food and leaving excessive tips. The same Lucas Harwood who wants to meet the chef and owner, who thinks our dolce veleno is transcendent. I picked up a knife, testing its weight. "Yeah, that Lucas Harwood." Amy emerged from the office, having heard my voice. "Jessica, what's wrong?" I told them everything. The undermining, the sexist bullshit wrapped in corporate speak, the final humiliation of being replaced by incompetent Tyler. They listened, Amy's face growing redder with each detail. "So what do we do?" Marcus asked when I finished. "Ban him." I set down the knife, a strange calm settling over me. No, that would be too easy, too obvious. "Then what?" I thought about Lucas's face when he talked about our ravioli, the way he'd apparently gushed about finding authentic Italian in Portland. How he'd made Via Emilia his weekly sanctuary, never knowing he was worship at the altar of the woman he'd just destroyed. "We're going to give Mr. Harwood exactly what he deserves," I said, a plan already forming. "He wants to be our best customer? Fine. Let's make sure he gets a dining experience he'll never forget." Amy and Marcus exchanged glances, recognizing the dangerous calm in my voice. "Just remember," Amy said carefully, "we have a business to protect." "Oh, I'm not going to do anything illegal," I assured her, smiling for the first time since Lucas's call. "I'm just going to remind him that in the restaurant business, just like in corporate America, everything is about cultural fit." That night, I sat in my apartment, unemployment paperwork spread across my coffee table, laptop open to job sites, but I wasn't looking at positions. I was looking at Via Emilia's reservation system. Lucas Harwood, table for 2. Every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Like clockwork. The art of revenge, I learned, is like making a perfect risotto. It requires patience, constant attention, and the ability to adjust the heat at exactly the right moments. Too fast, and you'll burn everything. Too slow, and it loses all impact. Lucas Harwood was about to learn what happened when you became the main ingredient in someone else's carefully crafted dish. Week 1 was reconnaissance. I stationed myself in Via Emilia's kitchen every Wednesday, watching through the pass as Lucas arrived precisely at 7:30. Always table 7 by the window. Always started with the dolce veleno. Always ordered the ravioli di ricotta with brown butter and sage. His dining companion varied, sometimes business associates, sometimes dates. Once his ex-wife who spent the entire meal looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. He's particular about the temperature. Craig, his regular server, reported back. Sends it back if it's not piping hot, and he likes extra sage, always asks for more sage. I took notes like a general planning a siege. Lucas liked his cocktail served in a coupe, not a rocks glass. He preferred San Pellegrino to Perrier. He always ordered dessert but rarely finished it. He tipped well but demanded perfection. Once sent back a wine because the temperature was 2 degrees too warm. By week 2, I began implementing phase 1, the subtle degradation of his dining experience. New policy, I told the kitchen staff, gathering them before Wednesday service. Table 7 gets special attention, everything technically correct, but... I paused, choosing my words carefully. Let's call it malicious compliance. Marcus raised an eyebrow. How malicious are we talking? His ravioli? Cook it 30 seconds less. Still safe, still good. Just not quite that perfect al dente he loves. His dolce veleno? Standard pour. Not the generous one Craig usually gives him. Extra sage? Of course. But use the older batch, the one that's lost its brightness. The staff exchanged glances. They knew what Lucas had done to me, and in the restaurant world, loyalty runs deeper than blood. That Wednesday, I watched from the kitchen as Lucas took his first bite of ravioli, his brow furrowed slightly. He paused, took another bite, then set down his fork. Is everything satisfactory? Craig asked with perfect professional concern. It's fine, Lucas said, the word fine clearly killing him. Just not quite as exceptional as usual. Craig apologized profusely, offered to have the kitchen remake it. Lucas waved him off, too proud to admit he couldn't pinpoint what was wrong. He finished most of the dish but didn't close his eyes in rapture like usual. Didn't demand to send compliments to the chef. Small victories. Week 3. We advanced to phase 2. Environmental warfare. Table 7 gets the wobbly chair, I instructed Amy. The one we've been meaning to fix. And the table with the slight tilt, where water glasses slide just a millimeter to the left. Diabolical, she murmured appreciatively. I also adjusted the playlist for Wednesday nights. Via Emilia usually featured a carefully curated mix of Italian jazz and contemporary acoustic. For Lucas's dining slot, I programmed in subtle disruptions, songs that were just a bit too loud, transitions that were slightly jarring, nothing obvious, nothing actionable, just enough to prevent that perfect ambiance he'd come to expect. That night, Lucas shifted constantly in his seat, moved his water glass 3 times, asked Craig to do something about the music, but couldn't articulate what was wrong with it. His date, a young marketing executive who kept checking her phone, seemed oblivious to his growing discomfort. Week 4 brought psychological operations. I trained the staff in what I called aggressive hospitality. Kill him with kindness, I explained. Check on table 7 every 5 minutes. Every 5 minutes. Water glass half empty. Fill it. Napkin slightly askew. Replace it. Crumb on the table. Sweep it immediately. Don't let him have a moment's peace. Craig, a natural introvert who prided himself on reading when tables wanted space, looked pained. That's going to be so annoying. Exactly. The results were glorious. Lucas couldn't get through 3 sentences without interruption. His business dinner, clearly an important one, based on the Armani suits, became a comedy of constant service. More water, Mr. Harwood? Everything tasting perfect tonight? Can I interest you in our specials again? How's that temperature for you? By the 5th interruption, I could see Lucas's jaw clenching. By the 10th, his companion was visibly irritated. They left before dessert. But the pièce de résistance came in week 5. Lucas had made a special reservation, a party of 6 for what appeared to be a celebration. Through careful eavesdropping, we learned it was to celebrate closing a major deal. Tonight, I told my team, we give Mr. Harwood the full experience. Everything that could go subtly wrong did. His reserved table accidentally, wasn't ready, resulting in a 15-minute wait at the bar. The cocktails arrived at different times. One guest's entree came out 10 minutes after the others. The ravioli, his precious ravioli, arrived lukewarm. "I'm so sorry," Craig gushed after Lucas's barely controlled complaint. "The kitchen is just slammed tonight. You know how it is. Sometimes things just don't come together like they should." I watched Lucas's face from my hiding spot in the kitchen. He knew. Maybe not the specifics, maybe not the who or why. But he knew this wasn't coincidence anymore. His paradise was becoming purgatory. One microscopic disappointment at a time. The best part? He kept coming back. Week after week. Lucas returned, determined to recapture that first transcendent experience. Like a gambler chasing his losses. He couldn't admit defeat. Each Wednesday, he'd arrive with hope, and each Wednesday, we'd serve him technically adequate food with technically adequate service that left him technically unable to complain. "Last night wasn't our best showing," Amy reported after week 6. He asked to speak to a manager. I apologized profusely, comped his dessert, promised we'd do better. He looked like he wanted to strangle me. I smiled, stirring a pot of Sunday sauce for staff meal. "How'd he tip?" 20%, but he wrote very disappointed on the receipt. "Perfect. He's almost ready." Ready for what? I ladled sauce onto plates, the rich aroma filling the kitchen. For the moment, he realizes that sometimes, when you destroy something good in someone's life, they find a way to return the favor. With interest. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah at Hollow Signal. "Tyler just crashed the Morrison campaign. Lost us a 2 hours client. Lucas is furious." I set down my phone and picked up my wine glass, raising it in a silent toast to karma. She might work slowly, but she always kept excellent reservations. Week 7 marked the beginning of Lucas's unraveling. He arrived alone that Wednesday, his usual confidence replaced by something darker. His Armani suit had a coffee stain on the cuff. His silver fox hair looked like he'd been running his hands through it. The hostess seated him at table 7, and I watched from the kitchen as he ordered a double dolce veleno before even looking at the menu. "He's on edge," Craig reported back. Snapped at me for bringing the wrong brand of sparkling water. I brought him exactly what he ordered. I'd been following the Hollow Signal implosion through my network of former colleagues. Tyler's incompetence had created a domino effect. 3 more clients threatening to leave. A viral social media disaster when he'd accidentally posted internal emails to the company Twitter account, and rumors that the board was asking hard questions about Lucas's leadership choices. My replacement had become his worst nightmare. That night, Lucas's dining experience was particularly unfortunate. His cocktail was made with well bourbon instead of top shelf, a mistake that he noticed immediately. "This isn't right," he told Craig, pushing the glass away. "I order the same thing every week. How hard is it to make it correctly?" Craig apologized profusely, brought him a new one. This time, it was too sweet. The third attempt was too strong. By the time he got a correct version, Lucas had already downed 2 drinks on an empty stomach. His ravioli arrived as he was texting furiously, presumably about work. He took one bite and his face flushed red. "This has oregano in it," he said, voice rising. "Since when does brown butter sauce have oregano?" "I'll check with the kitchen, sir," Craig said smoothly. Of course it had oregano, just a whisper, just enough to throw off the flavor profile Lucas had memorized. "Don't bother," Lucas snapped. "Just bring me something else, the osso buco, and make sure it's made correctly." The osso buco took 35 minutes. We were very thorough in making it correctly. By the time it arrived, Lucas had finished his 4th cocktail and most of a bottle of wine. He ate mechanically, angrily, like the food had personally betrayed him. That's when things went south. A couple at table 6 recognized him. Turned out the woman worked at one of the agencies that had just fired Hollow Signal. I couldn't hear the exact words, but Lucas's voice carried as he told them to mind their own fucking business. The woman looked shocked. Her companion stood up, said something sharp. Lucas laughed, an ugly sound that silenced nearby tables. Craig rushed over to defuse the situation, but Lucas was beyond reason. "You know what?" he said loudly, swaying slightly as he stood. "This place has gone to shit anyway. Used to be exceptional. Now it's just another mediocre Portland restaurant coasting on past glory." "Sir, perhaps we should call you a car," Amy suggested, appearing at his elbow with practiced calm. "Don't touch me," Lucas snarled, jerking away. "I know what you're doing. All of you. Think I'm stupid? Think I don't notice?" The entire restaurant was watching now. Forks suspended midway to mouths. Conversations dead. That peculiar silence that falls when public decorum shatters. "Notice what, Mr. Harwood?" Amy asked, her voice steady. "The service, the food, everything's wrong. Every damn week, something's wrong." He grabbed his glass, gestured wildly, sloshing wine onto the pristine tablecloth. "Someone's fucking with me. I want to talk to the owner. Now." Amy's eyes flicked to the kitchen pass where I stood in the shadows. I shook my head slightly. "I'm afraid the owner isn't available this evening," she said. "But I'd be happy to." "Bullshit." Lucas slammed his hand on the table, making glasses jump. "I spend thousands here. Thousands. I deserve some goddamn respect." Two things happened simultaneously. Our sous chef, Eddie, 6'4" and built like a linebacker, emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. And someone at table 3 started recording on their phone. "Time to go," Eddie said quietly, positioning himself between Lucas and the rest of the dining room. Lucas looked at Eddie, then at the phone pointed his way, and some self-preservation instinct finally kicked in. He threw cash on the table, not enough to cover his bill, and stormed toward the exit. "This isn't over," he announced to the room. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer. False advertising, intentional distress. I'll own this place." He tried to make a dramatic exit but misjudged the door, shoulder-checking the frame. The last we saw of Lucas Harwood that night was him stumbling into the rain, fumbling with his phone, probably calling an Uber to ferry him away from his ruined sanctuary. The restaurant stayed quiet for a beat. Then table 3, the one with the phone, started a slow clap. Others joined in. Soon the entire dining room was applauding like they'd just witnessed dinner theater. Amy found me in the kitchen later, after we'd comped meals and smoothed ruffled feathers and turned Lucas's meltdown into the evening's entertainment. "He'll leave reviews," she warned. "Probably try to tank us online." I pulled up Yelp on my phone, showed her Lucas's freshly posted 1-star review. It was a masterpiece of incoherent rage, peppered with profanity and accusations of conspiracy. The kind of review that says more about the reviewer than the restaurant. "Good," I said. "Let him. Every crazy rant makes him look less credible." "You think he'll come back?" I thought about Lucas's face when he'd said someone was fucking with him. The dawning realization that his sanctuary had become hostile territory. The narcissistic injury of being made unwelcome in a place he'd claimed as his own. "Oh, he'll be back," I said. "Men like Lucas can't stand losing. He'll come back to prove he can't be driven away. And when he does..." I didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. We both knew that Lucas Harwood's very public breakdown was just the appetizer. The main course was yet to be served. That night, I saved the security footage to multiple drives. Not for legal reasons, Lucas's threats were empty. And we'd done nothing actionable. I saved it because sometimes, when someone destroys your professional life with a smile and a manila folder, the universe gives you the gift of watching them self-destruct in your sanctuary. And that video? That was a Michelin star moment. Lucas stayed away for 2 weeks. During that time, his Yelp review was flagged by the community as a rant and removed. His Google review met the same fate after several regulars reported it as harassment. But I knew he'd be back. Men like Lucas don't know how to lose gracefully. They just regroup and attack from a different angle. He returned on a Thursday, not his usual Wednesday. Different suit, different attitude, sober. calculated. He'd brought reinforcements, a sharp-looking woman with a leather portfolio and the predatory smile of a lawyer. Amy intercepted them at the host stand. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" "We don't need one," the woman said. "I'm Rebecca Steinberg, Mr. Harwood's attorney. We're here to speak with the owner regarding the deliberate harassment and intentional infliction of emotional distress my client has suffered at this establishment." Amy's smile never wavered. "I'm afraid the owner isn't available this evening. However, I'd be happy to." "Then, we'll wait." Lucas interrupted. "We'll have a table for two. And water?" "Just water." They were seated at table 12, deliberately not table 7. I watched from the kitchen as they made a show of documenting everything. The lawyer took photos. Lucas pointed out safety violations that didn't exist. They ordered nothing but water and breadsticks, camping out like they were conducting a stakeout. "What do we do?" Marcus asked, peering through the pass. "We give them exactly what they're asking for," I said. "Polite, professional service, nothing more, nothing less." For 2 hours, they sat there. Craig refilled their water glasses with mechanical precision. Other servers went about their business, treating table 12 like any other. The lunch rush came and went. Lucas grew increasingly agitated as absolutely nothing happened. Finally, around 3 p.m., I made my decision. "Amy," I said, straightening my chef's coat, "I think it's time to introduce myself to Mr. Harwood's lawyer." I walked into the dining room with the confidence of someone on their home turf. Lucas saw me first. His eyes widened in recognition, then narrowed in confusion. He knew my face but couldn't place it. We'd passed in Hollow Signal's hallways 1,000 times. But I was out of context now, wearing chef's whites instead of corporate blazers. "Ms. Steinberg," I said pleasantly. "I'm Jessica Morgan, owner of Via Emilia. I understand you wanted to speak with me." The recognition hit Lucas like a physical blow. His face went white, then red, then a mottled combination of both. "You," he breathed. "Hello, Lucas," I said, pulling out a chair and sitting down uninvited. "Fancy seeing you here, although I suppose it's not that surprising. You've been one of our most devoted customers. Wednesday nights at 7:30, table 7. Dolce Veleno, extra sage on the ravioli. We've quite enjoyed having you." Rebecca looked between us, sensing the shift in power dynamics. "You two know each other?" "Oh, yes," I said, smiling warmly. Lucas was my boss at Hollow Signal Media, briefly. He fired me about 2 months ago. Something about lacking leadership presence and not being aligned with the company's vision. How's Tyler working out, by the way? I heard about the Morrison campaign disaster. Lucas's hands clenched on the table. "This is harassment, retaliation. You deliberately sabotaged." "Sabotaged what, exactly?" I interrupted, my voice still pleasant. "Served you food? Provided table service. I have receipts for every meal. Lucas, security footage of every visit, including your colorful evening 2 weeks ago. Would you like me to pull up the video? I'm sure Ms. Steinberg would find it illuminating." Rebecca's sharp eyes reassessed the situation. "Lucas, perhaps we should—" "She targeted me," he hissed. "Deliberately ruined." "Ruined what?" I asked. "Your dining experience. I'm sorry you've been dissatisfied with our service lately. Of course, we've been going through some transitions. Lost some excellent staff recently. You know how it is when you have to replace talented people with whoever's available. Sometimes standards slip. Things that used to run smoothly become adequate." I let that word hang in the air. Adequate. The same word he'd used to dismiss 6 years of my work. "However," I continued, pulling out an envelope from my coat pocket, "I absolutely understand if Via Emilia no longer meets your exacting standards, which is why I've prepared this." I slid the envelope to Rebecca, who opened it cautiously. Inside was a formal letter, printed on Via Emilia letterhead. "It's a permanent ban notice," I explained helpfully. "Given Mr. Harwood's disruptive behavior, threats against our staff, And the distress he's caused our other patrons, Via Emilia is exercising its right to refuse service. Permanently. The letter includes still frames from our security footage and witness statements from other diners. You know, for documentation purposes. Lucas snatched the letter, reading it with growing fury. It was polite, professional, and legally bulletproof. I'd had my own lawyer review it that morning. "You can't do this," he said, but the fight was draining out of him. "Actually, I can," I said, standing up. "It's my restaurant, my rules, my decision who's welcome here." Funny how that works, isn't it? The power to decide who belongs and who doesn't, who has the right cultural fit for the environment we're trying to create. Rebecca was already packing up her portfolio, recognizing a lost cause. "Lucas, we should go." "One more thing," I said as they prepared to leave. "That review you posted? The one calling me an incompetent manager who couldn't handle pressure? It's still visible on LinkedIn. But here's the interesting part. Since you've been coming here every week, raving about our food, leaving those generous tips. Well, it does make one wonder about your judgment, doesn't it? Either you were wrong about me then, or you've been dining at a restaurant run by someone you consider incompetent. Neither option reflects well on your decision-making abilities." Lucas stood there, trembling with rage, stripped of his usual weapons. In his world, power flowed from titles and org charts and the ability to control people's livelihoods. In mine, power came from the simple right to say, "You're not welcome here." "This isn't over," he said, echoing his drunken threat from 2 weeks ago. "Oh, but it is," I replied. "You're permanently banned from Via Emilia, Lucas, and if you violate that ban, we'll pursue criminal trespass charges. It's all in the letter. Have your lawyer explain it to you." I turned to Rebecca. "Counselor, always a pleasure to meet a colleague who knows when to cut their losses. Can we validate your parking?" She almost smiled. "That won't be necessary." They left in silence. Lucas didn't look back, but I could see the defeat in the slope of his shoulders. He'd lost his sanctuary, his weekly escape, his place of comfort. All because he couldn't resist destroying someone he saw as beneath him. The restaurant felt lighter after they left. Craig brought me an espresso, unprompted. "That was beautiful, boss." "No," I said, watching through the window as Lucas's Tesla pulled away. "That was just business, nothing personal, just a simple matter of cultural fit." That night, I updated Via Emilia's website, right there on the homepage. In elegant script, "We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone who doesn't align with our values of respect, kindness, and appreciation for exceptional hospitality." Lucas would understand the message. After all, he'd taught me the importance of being clear about cultural expectations. 6 months later, I was reviewing vendor invoices in Via Emilia's back office when Amy knocked on the door frame. "There's something you need to see," she said, holding up her phone. It was a LinkedIn post from Sarah, my former colleague at Hollow Signal. A screenshot of an email announcement, Lucas Harwood's departure from Hollow Signal Media, effective immediately. The comments were a goldmine of barely veiled celebrations and "moving on to new opportunities" euphemisms. I didn't feel the surge of victory I'd expected, just a quiet sense of completion, like closing a book you'd already figured out the ending to. Via Emilia had thrived in those 6 months. The story of Lucas's ban had become restaurant legend, whispered among Portland's service industry workers. We'd gained a reputation as a place that didn't tolerate bullies, no matter how expensive their suits. Our reservations were booked solid for weeks in advance. As for me, I'd finally stopped living a double life. No more hiding my business ownership, no more pretending to be less than I was. Via Emilia's success had opened doors to restaurant consulting opportunities, food writing gigs, and a pending cookbook deal. Turns out, when you stop letting others define your worth, you discover what you're actually capable of. The Wednesday after Lucas's LinkedIn announcement, Craig approached me during service. "Boss, there's someone at the host stand asking for you. Says he's an old colleague." I found Tyler, poor, incompetent Tyler, shifting nervously by the entrance. He looked exhausted, stress aged by his brief stint in leadership. Jessica, he said, his voice smaller than I remembered. I wanted to apologize. For everything. I know Lucas used me to push you out, and I should have said something. I studied him for a moment. Would you like to stay for dinner, Tyler? His eyes widened. Can I? I mean, I heard this place is impossible to get into. Amy, I called. Table for one, please. Mr. Brennan is our guest tonight. As Amy led him away, Tyler turned back. Why are you being so nice to me? Because, I said. Holding on to anger is like overcooking pasta. It ruins everything it touches. Besides, you were just another ingredient in Lucas's recipe for disaster. Not your fault he couldn't cook. Tyler's dinner was perfect. Every course, every pour, every small detail exactly right. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because that's what we did at Via Emilia. We served excellence, regardless of who was at the table. Later that night, after the last customer had left and the kitchen was clean, I stood in my empty restaurant. The Edison bulbs cast warm shadows on the checkered tablecloths. The smell of garlic and basil still hung in the air. This place that had been my secret was now my truth. Marcus emerged from the kitchen, pulling off his chef's coat. Heard about Harwood, he said. Yeah. Feel any different? I considered the question. You know what the best revenge actually is? What's that? Success that has nothing to do with them. Building something so good, so entirely yours, that their opinion becomes irrelevant. Lucas thought he was ending my story when he fired me. Turns out, he was just the plot device that pushed me toward my real ending. Marcus grinned. That's very philosophical for someone who spent weeks serving him subpar ravioli. The ravioli was never subpar, I corrected. It was precisely calibrated disappointment. There's an art to that. We laughed, and the sound filled the space that had become my real office, my true corporate ladder, my actual leadership platform. I never saw Lucas Harwood again. Portland's a small city in many ways, but big enough for two people to never cross paths if the universe decides they shouldn't. I heard rumors, a job in Seattle, then San Francisco, each position lasting less time than the one before. The kind of career spiral that happens when your reputation for transformational leadership transforms into a warning label. But I didn't track his downfall. Didn't need to. The best revenge isn't served cold. It's not served at all. It's creating a life so full, so authentically yours, that the people who try to diminish you become footnotes in your success story. Every Wednesday at 7:30, Table 7 sits empty for exactly 5 minutes. Not as a monument to Lucas, but as a reminder. A reminder that every ending is also a beginning. Every rejection redirects you towards something better. Every person who tells you that you don't belong is just showing you where you shouldn't waste your time. Then we seat the next eager diner at Table 7, serve them with genuine warmth, and continue the real work of feeding people well. Because that's what we do at Via Emilia. We transform raw ingredients into something meaningful, including ourselves. Some nights, when I'm closing up alone, I pour myself a dolce veleno, sweet poison, the drink Lucas loved. I've tweaked the recipe since his last visit. Added a splash of Aperol for color, a twist of orange for brightness. Made it better. Made it mine. I raised the glass to the empty restaurant, to the journey from corporate drone to owner, from adequate to exceptional. Saluti, I whisper to no one in particular. To cultural fit. The cocktail is perfect. But then again, when you own the place, you get to define what perfect means. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and let's connect. If you enjoyed this tale of sweet revenge and second chances, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. Have you ever had a boss who got their comeuppance or found success after being underestimated? I'd love to hear your stories too.